in 5, 4.
Welcome to Android Dialogues, where we have bite-sized conversations with people from the Android community. I'm Chiu-Ki Chen.
I'm Huyen and
And today we're chatting with...
Tor Norbye.
And Chet Haase.
I know what you're thinking. You think we're talking about that thing. But we're not talking about that thing today.
No.
Not that thing.
Not that thing, the other thing that we're
Other
not talking
things.
about.
My family won't let me talk about that.
Right. So instead of that thing, we're going to talk about public speaking. We all actually have given talks on stage, and different people have different styles, so we thought it would be fun to just share what we do. I'm going to start with Tor, because yesterday I was watching your live demo. I was super duper impressed. I never do live demos because I'm just so scared of things going wrong and I'm forgetting that one line I need to add, and then the whole thing doesn't compile and people think I'm like stupid. So I'm wondering, what's your trick? Like, how do you prepare for a live demo, and how do you recover from like problems? Because that's always problems.
Well, it helps if you're demoing something you're very familiar with, right? So, I know the product inside out. In fact, the way I got my start doing demos on stage was we were going to unveil Project Rave. This is when I worked at Sun. And it was this and we were actually going to be in the keynote at Java 1. And my manager knew that this product was not ready for prime time. It was early days, and he's like, the only person who can touch it on stage is Tor, because he knows the product inside out. And if something goes wrong, he will know how to diffuse the bomb.
Right.
And the product was rock solid until demo day. I mean, I'd done it 100 times, because this was a keynote. For keynotes at Java 1, they had rehearsal after rehearsal after rehearsal.
And it was flawless, all of them, until the real deal.
Exactly. And the thing was, I had seen this crash a month earlier, and I knew that this crash, if this happens, so basically what happened was when you hit the run button, you get to this, the web server had crashed basically, and I knew that there's no recovery. You just have to kill everything and start over. And so when this happened on stage, I just knew, okay, I better start over. And because I've done it so many times, it was very quick to sort of get things back. Although it was 2 minutes, which is a pretty long time of you just frantically trying to get things working again. But that was sort of, my beginning of demoing on stage. And I actually enjoyed it, and the crowd thought
That was your first time live demoing?
Well,
you started with a bomb,
I would say
basically.
at least for that size crowd. I mean, I had done other demos internally and so forth, but that was sort of where I got very comfortable just coding on stage, because I like that more than talking.
I've done that. I can do it anytime, any day
it's
now.
not going to get worse than crashing in front of 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the thing that I noticed when Tor demoed, so yesterday in the What's New in Android Tools talk, you were basically doing live demo of a lot of the new features, the new annotations, the new C-line editor, and it's just this flowing demo where you go from thing to thing to thing. And I think most other people would script that. They're like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then they'll forget, and they're like, oh, at this point I was going to do it. And you're not. You're just stepping through it, oh, and then let me show you this, and here we can show the stack trace for this, and then I'm going to step into this other thing, and it just sort of magically flows as if it were scripted. But I don't think so, because if it was scripted, then there would be pauses as you try to remember what you were going to do next. But I don't know. It's very impressive. Also, it didn't crash.
Yeah, that was basically, you were scrolling so fast that I blinked my eye. The annotation they were talking about was gone. So, what was that thing again?
Yeah.
And you're like,
go on YouTube, watch their talk, and slow it down to 10%.
Right, so that at actually a human level, I can actually understand what happened.
Yeah, I mean, they also told us before the talk, please don't go as fast as the person before you, Chet, because no one can understand. But the thing is, I knew that I had a lot to show. I had 20 minutes to do it, and it was I can talk slower, but then I have to cut some stuff out, and there was nothing I was willing to cut. Right, I'd already cut so much to get it down to 20 minutes.
Right.
So I was I'm just going to go a little faster, and hopefully...
By a little, he mean 3x at least.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but I could go faster. I talk way too fast. I know that. I have to really slow down.
So actually, that's a good question I want to ask, because I also talk fast when I'm on stage. Is there any particular trick or reminder that you have to remember to breathe, remember to slow down, so people can actually
You're asking
understand?
the wrong person. I talk too fast.
Okay.
I do it as well, which I don't really mind. I feel like I have a lot of content to cover, and I'm going to talk as fast as I need to get it out there. I once wrote in an elevator, I think it was maybe last year at a conference. I rode in the elevator, and there was 6 other people in the elevator, and they looked over and they said, "You're Chet Haase."
Oh.
Yes, I am. We hate you.
Okay.
It was the closed captioning team. It was the people responsible for sitting in the back of the room typing what the presenter is saying.
Right.
And on one hand, you're supposed to sort of give them your script or your slides so that they know where the talk is going ahead of time.
But you improv.
I'm not really good at doing stuff ahead of time, so I basically wouldn't have the correct material or drafts to give them. So they're seeing it all for the first time, and I'm talking
And so are
faster
you.
than they can type. And they didn't appreciate that. They probably didn't appreciate it yesterday during the talks either.
Someone told me that they felt sorry for them yesterday. They'd seen them
Yeah.
frantically typing, and I feel sorry about it. I probably should do better. I know for things like keynotes, then it's much more like you're much more worried about what you're going to say.
Do they actually coach you? Actually, at Google, did they come and watch you speak and then like, no, that's not a good style. Like, why don't you try this other thing? Just
They
curious.
have that as an option,
Okay.
right? And they strongly encourage you to take it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sort of set in my ways, and sort
So
of like
you're like, meh.
I'm not talking through slides, so I think a lot of the tips they would do if I were to present material and use my hands and address the audience and
You should do this
you know,
a lot more. I was picking that up yesterday. You should do this.
With your third hand, basically, your two hands are typing, your third
Yeah.
hand with gesturing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I sort of have a thing that I like to do, and the audience seems to like that, so that's what I do.
So I did notice on the speed thing, I noticed the last time I did one of those improv comedy things, I very purposefully, consciously, before I went on stage, said, talk slower. Because when I'm doing a tech conference, like, well, I've got material to cover. It's going to come out of my mouth however it's going to come out. And I don't really care if it's too fast, because people can go back and watch the video again, right?
Right.
That's just the words that I wanted to use to express the concept at that time. In comedy, you really want to let people know where the conversation is going and help them understand, the funny points or the surprises or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's so much adrenaline on the stage. This is part of what I think contributes to the speed talking, is that there is extra energy just simply by being on stage. You have a microphone, you're broadcasting to the room, there's a lot of people there, there's possibly a live stream, there's video, there's a lot of pressure that kicks up the adrenaline, and then your energy just goes up. It's like
And you don't
drinking a
even
lot
notice.
of coffee all at once.
You don't even notice
No,
that
no,
you
no.
were speaking faster and faster
Right.
and faster.
But then after the fact, you listen to yourself and you realize you sound like a chipmunk. Maybe you could work on that. But I noticed this in comedy, that I was speaking too fast, and I took a step back and said, A, I could speak slower and help them understand what's going on, and B, you could actually have pauses. You
The
could
dramatic
give
silence.
people dramatic, or in comedy, it's the funny silence. One thing I've noticed in that's a factor in comedy is that you really need to give the audience a chance to appreciate things, because they like that, right? So if you say something funny and they laugh, my tendency is, okay, that joke is done and I'm moving on to the next thing, and you're basically stomping on their laugh, and it's kind of an unsatisfying feeling, like they actually want to appreciate that thing. But then you have to, as a presenter, realize that dynamic is going to happen, and if you say something that happens to get a laugh, you might allow them a space to actually appreciate that before you move on, right? Because otherwise, like, A, they're not getting the chance to appreciate it, and B, they're not understanding what you're saying because you're speaking in the middle of noise that's in the crowd, so they can't actually hear you.
No, I would say that I would appreciate that for a technical talk as well. And let me appreciate this thing that you're trying to teach me.
I felt very conflicted about it, because in the demo too, there were a couple of places where I had a lot to do, and so I knew that if I paused, I did a little pause, because there's a couple of things that I know that was a big deal, and I could sort of tell a few people, but I was like, I got to get through all of this. So of course there were some places where I stopped, but in general,
You got to breathe.
Yeah, but it's really awkward when you think something's going to really land well and it's silent, and it's like we had a couple of moments where it's like they're like. And then you have, the manager like, okay, they're expecting the pause, so they won't move on, And you don't want that.
No.
Yeah, I don't usually write jokes into my talk because of that, because I'm afraid that if they don't find funny, and I'll be like,
Yeah,
myself.
no, I never script jokes in. Like, I will put funny things in the slides, but if they sail, that's fine. I never script purposely funny things, especially verbal things, into my talks, and that's part of the dynamic. Like, if you say a joke and then you expect people to get it and it's not funny, a lot of jokes you really don't know until it comes out.
But my talks end up being funny because I make mistakes on stage and I laugh at myself on stage. So I'll click on the slide and then I'll look like, why this slide on stage? I literally forgot, and I will just blurt it out without thinking. And people are like, ha ha ha, and I'm like, oh yeah, right, because this line, I want to point out this particular function. So I don't need to write the jokes in, because I just, make
Provide
mistakes.
your own, and you laugh. And do you give yourself pause then to allow yourself to laugh? or do you stomp on it immediately and just go on with it?
I mean, I literally will stare at it. And then, oh yeah, right. So I pause because I have to recover. And maybe that come out as like a
Thoughtful.
funny or something. I don't know. But people actually thought my talks are very genuine because I make those mistakes and I just kind of like, okay, sorry, I forgot what I'm supposed to be talking about. Oh right, this is what I'm supposed to be talking about.
Well, you become very relatable as a speaker if you don't pretend I am the expert and you are the idiots learning from me. Like if you have that attitude, I think the audience is not going to be as friendly as if you're like, oh yeah, I'm,
No, much better to have an attitude of I am the idiot and I have no idea why you're in this room right now.
Right.
Yeah. No, so I totally subscribe to that like genuine thing. I think it's key to actually have a conversation with the audience. The more real you are, I think the more relatable you are, the more especially with technical content, the more you make it possible for the audience to say, I can do this, I can understand this thing that they're talking about, because it turns out that's a human being.
Yeah, I mean, they can actually see me reconstruct why this slide is important on stage. Not scripted, because I like literally forgot. And then, because that's this thing and this other thing. So, I mean, I don't know what you do. Like, my slides are usually very code-driven. So I will read the code and then interpret it for them. It's like an interpretive dance, except it's code and me talking. So, yeah.
No, it's like I always heard like that lesson, like especially like because I'm fairly new to speaking. It's like a lot of people tend to like do like the slides that are like just like teeny tiny font, and then it's like here's my entire class and let me go through it line by line. So I've always like tried to stay away from that. But it's like
please do.
How do you talk about something technical and still like kind of get information across without boring someone with like, well, this is the API call and you want to pass this parameter. Like, what's like your biggest tip for someone who's like really new at speaking to communicating? Being
technical
engaging,
content.
but getting something across, but being engaging, but still informative. So like, what's a good rule that people should totally stay away from, or like, what's a good rule for things that people should stay away from when they're trying to do technical speaking?
So I mean, there's a lot of different elements to that. One is actually being genuine. So I never script anything that I'm going to say. It's just that I know the material well and I can speak to it at the time. And just the fact that the words are being made up at the time, I think makes it more approachable because the audience can tell it's not a script that I memorized.
It's a risk when you're a new speaker. You're worried you're going to bomb if you don't have a script, right? But I think a good strategy is to have a plan for the first 30 seconds. Like, so you kind of practice what you're going to say. You can deviate from it, but if you're really nervous, it takes about 30 seconds, I think, to get over that nerve, and you're just talking now, and then not have script for the rest. But if you do that, and you actually totally bomb and you can't remember anything, then it's probably it would have been better reading, right?
I think it's probably easier to start out where you do actually script, or at least have a general flow of what you're going to say on all your slides,
a bullet list.
And then either, if you want to stick to that script, like if you're really nervous about running out of words in the middle of the talk, then stick to the script, but rehearse it so much that it's actually natural by the time you get up there. So then it just flows out and it seems like you don't have a script, right? Either that or an in-between place is, go over all the slides, figure out what you want to say, but don't get locked into those exact words. So it's not a script anymore, that was just like background content, and then when you get up there, you see the slide and you say, here's what I was going to talk about in this slide, and it's new words coming out, but it's the same ideas that you went over before. So that's like one approach to just the general, like how do you actually present the material. Another element is the slides themselves. A common pitfall that I've seen people fall into, especially at tech conferences, and especially people that don't speak that much, is putting everything on the slide.
Yeah.
Right? So really tiny fonts, lots and lots of bullets, code that's really dense. Okay, so one of the things that I learned from this improv presentation comedy stuff that I do early on is the more information that's on a slide, especially the more text that's on a slide, the longer you're going to make the audience pause as soon as that slide appears. Right? So that slide appears and there's a lot of information there, and then the speaker starts speaking to it, and they're not listening to you. They're reading your slide, right? Because they are parsing. Their language center in their brain is parsing all the information on the slide, trying to understand it, and then meanwhile there's this speaker going on about something that they're not listening to, right? So what you want to do is simplify the information. You don't need correct punctuation. You don't need complete sentences, right? You don't need to use the word the anywhere, right? So just have it as little text as possible on the slide, and just boil it down to the essence of what you want to express. In fact, they should really be more bullets to you. Like, do you want them to read your slides, and therefore you can just give them your slides and say go away, or do you want them to enjoy and learn from your presentation? If they're there to see you and to learn from this person that is explaining it, then give yourself enough information on the slide that you can speak to the content, but not bury them in the information that they're getting from
So
you.
it's covert speaker notes that's on.
It is. I
on the
I
screen.
never use speaker notes. I never look at them because when I'm in the flow, like I can't stop myself and look at those words and understand that.
And you can tell.
So that the bullets are speaker notes.
You can tell when people are looking at the speaker notes. It's
Right.
like, their eyes are
Yep.
down, they're pausing, and it's
Right. And
sounding
you can-
much
yes.
less. They're not talking to you. They're reading to you,
Exactly.
and there's a difference.
Yeah.
So do you also not do speaker notes?
speaker
then?
notes.
No speaker notes. Do
Yep.
you do speaker notes?
Bullets.
Bullets?
My slides are my cheats.
Okay,
Like
so
my
same
cheat
here.
sheet.
Yeah, I don't do.
Same.
I don't do. Well, part of the reason why I don't do speaker notes is that I'm afraid that I'll go to a conference that don't have the dual screen setup, and then I can't see the notes, and then now what? Of course you can print it out old school style with paper, but then I feel like your distance from your audience and the notes is even further. So you're pretending to talk to them. I mean, really, because you're just reading,
Yep.
and then you're like, you do like
Yep.
this, and then like you said, they can tell that you're not
Yep.
talking to them.
So one of two things happens when there's like detailed speaker notes. Either they will read them verbatim, which I've seen and is really horrible,
Right.
or they know they're not supposed to read the speaker notes, so they'll look down and they will spend that time parsing. Like there's a two-way
Right.
street on the too much information. Like you're going to make the audience pause if there's too much on
You
your slides,
have
but
to
you're
interpret
going to
that.
pause
Yeah.
if you have too much information that you have to
Yeah.
parse, right? So they look at the speaker notes and they pause and they think about it for a while, and then they come out with the information. Like don't put it there at all. So I would say
Yeah.
not only like don't look at your speaker notes, don't have them, because if they're there, they're going to become a crutch.
And that means you have to be an expert on what you're talking about, right? Because if you can't speak to, if someone couldn't stop you an elevator and say, talk to me about this for 5 minutes, then you might not have the sort of.
Have you actually given a technical talk with no slides? Just talk. I have not. I'm just curious because if you know it so well, like, would it be even like less distracting if you have no slides, or you think that for technical content, without that kind of anchor for people to put their thoughts around, it's going to be just a disaster?
I think I want the slides so they're not staring at me.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
Not a distraction tactic.
Where do I put my hands? I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that. I saw a fascinating talk by John Carmack years ago. So
Okay.
John Carmack, the guy behind id, now at Oculus Rift, super smart, brilliant engineer guy, came out in the middle of the stage, giving a keynote at the Game Developer Conference, opened his mouth and talked for like an hour solid. Just stream of consciousness talk about whatever it was he was covering then. It was ideas about like gold plating software or whatever.
Okay.
I assume that there was a general flow that he was trying to follow. Like if I did this, then I would kind of construct slides beforehand so that I could at least have an outline of what I wanted to cover.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I might get lost and sort of not accomplish the goal.
I mean, that's
that I
what
was going
comedians
for.
do. But at least the good ones, usually have planned how they're going to get from joke A to joke B.
I
Because
thought comedians actually have acts that they memorize and then they
some do,
spit
like
it back
Seinfeld.
out.
He's completely memorized.
Right.
Every
Right.
single
A lot
thing.
of stand-ups are memorized because
Yeah.
the word order and the word choice really matters.
Yeah,
in
you can
jokes,
you can ruin a joke if you
Right.
paraphrase it.
Yeah.
Right,
See,
exactly.
that one was supposed to be funny, and it wasn't.
No.
It was because he didn't memorize it before.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a memorization for the actual like joke content, but then there's also the flow, the segues. Like, from this story, then we're going to flow into this other one, and you sort of need to know how that's going to go. So I assume when people are just sort of expostulating on something that they have a plan for it, but I don't know. I haven't tried.
I actually seen a good hybrid, so it's slides, and then she just turned the screen black. And people were like, something broken? But no, she was trying to make a very important point, and then she just want people to not look at the slide and look at her. I don't know, if everybody does that, maybe it's not as effective, but that was such a shocker. Everyone was like, and then she just like talk and keep talking, and then people was like, no, this is totally planned. The screen didn't just break. So like she turned the screen dark and then spoke with no slides, and then went back to the next session. So it was kind of like a transition thing, and she said, okay, that's what I talked about last time, and then now we move to the next session. So that was amazing.
It'd be interesting to try. I mean, it's more difficult to try for technical stuff where you want to explain APIs and code.
Right.
Go ahead. I was going to answer the rest of her question. Go ahead. I'm talking a lot. The other thing to do when you're presenting is to give
Elbow
space
down.
to your co-presenter. Go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was going to say that I've heard a lot of people saying that they're not really good at listening. Right. So I think if you're
I'm
just
going to let you finish, but
well, so for some people, it's very hard to sit and just hear, in their ears knowledge and try to, it helps them to anchor it visually. So I think using the slide, not distracting your listener, but actually augmenting is helpful for some. So I think that if you're relating a personal story, slides don't help. But I think if you're trying to teach someone how to use the new permissions model in M, for example, then that's something
And
that you
also,
probably
I
want
feel
to
like
have.
a slide doesn't have to be a wall of words. It could be diagrams, right? right? And that visual relation is hard to explain in like a linear fashion in words.
Well, it could even be a picture that's just like, hey, look, a cute, kitten. But it could just sort of like be something that goes with what you're saying, right? And that could just be more
you
memorable.
just need kittens. It doesn't need to have anything to do with your talk.
Yeah.
People are like, kitten, I love you, great speaker.
All right, well, that was Android Dialogues for The flow is gone. Well, thanks for joining us for Android Dialogues with Tor and Chet. Where can everyone find you on the internet?
I would use the Google search engine and search for Tor Norbye, and you're probably going to find my Google Plus page where I'm most active, but I also have a Twitter account that I'm occasionally post to.
Not as active.
No.
Same thing. You can search for my name. I have a G Plus account where I post stuff. I post stuff on Twitter as well. I started writing articles on Medium recently, some Android as well as comedy content.
And you have a blog still, right? I mean, I have one, but
I do have a blog, but frankly, it's...
But that's not where you find him on the
internet. It's not where the primary stuff goes, especially short-form jokes. Yeah, don't really play well on blogs. Also, a podcast that we do together, you can search for that, where we interview people like Chiu-Ki.
Yeah. So, great. Thank you for chatting with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Wow, everybody says the Royal 5.
Was that at the Royal?